it's a bit like in America where people, attach things to, all these amendments to things. There'd be all sorts of horse trading, and all of their loyalty, it's just human nature, will be towards Scotland. So, and it's equally strange that after 10 months, then suddenly, let's say after 18 months, if Alex Salmond's time frame actually happened. So after 18 months, so 10 months of the new Parliament or whatever it is, the Scottish MPs suddenly leave. And let's say Ed Miliband had a majority based upon the Scottish MPs being in Parliament, negotiates a deal. The day they leave, suddenly Ed Miliband loses his majority, for example.
Then there has to be an election. I mean, that is one of the consequences, I think. Dominic, well, you've raised some very interesting points. I don't agree with all of them, but I think there's something that we may return to tomorrow. Well, in fact, we might return to it over the next hour, because for the next hour, we're going to be in the company of the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, Harriet Harman. She will be answering your questions on Scottish independence, on what's happening in the Middle East. You may want to talk to her about the appointment of Fiona Woolf to replace Baroness Butler-Sloss in the child abuse inquiry, and lots more besides. Do call now, 0345 6060 973. Keep it LBC.
On FM, online, on your mobile, and on digital radio. Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 7 o'clock, thousands of people have gathered for a rally in central London calling on Scotland to vote no to independence. It's been organised in Trafalgar Square by comedian Eddie Izzard and historian Dan Snow. Shona Milne is there and has told LBC why she feels so strongly about the referendum.
Explain the pain I am feeling at this division that has been created within the United Kingdom and within Scotland. The pain is deep inside me. I am inconsolable. I hate the division. I hate the thought that my nationality could be taken from me and taken from millions of Scottish people who absolutely desire to stay British and Scottish.
David Cameron has given his final speech in Scotland ahead of Thursday's vote. Speaking in Aberdeen, he says there is no going back from a yes vote. Patrick Harvey is a Green MSP on the yes camp. He's told Ian the no camp isn't offering a vision of how to improve Scotland's society.
How to close the gap between rich and poor, how to break our reliance on unsustainable use of resources like fossil fuels. I don't pretend that independence would be a perfect solution to all of these problems, but it opens up possibilities that at the moment are closed to us.
The Foreign Secretary says British forces are unable to rescue a hostage being held by Islamic State fighters because they don't know where he is being held. The militants are threatening to kill Alan Henning after the murders of David Haines and 2 American journalists. 30 countries at a meeting in Paris have agreed to offer military aid to the Iraqi government. Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond says the UK hasn't ruled out being involved in airstrikes.
We haven't made a decision yet about how we will best contribute to the coalition effort against ISIL, but I have said this morning in the meeting that Britain is clear that it will play a leading role in this coalition.
It's reported police in Thailand are searching for a backpacker in connection with the murders of 2 British tourists. The man and woman in their 20s were found dead on a beach on the island of Koh Tao. It's thought they'd been attacked with a garden tool, which was discovered nearby. Police are warning it's likely there are more victims of a children's doctor who sexually abused cancer patients as young as 11. Dr Miles Bradbury, who worked at Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge, admitted to 22 sexual offences dating back to 2009. Police in North London have arrested 3 men after seizing heroin worth almost £10 million. Detectives were tracking a car as it stopped in Finchley when the driver removed 2 black bags and put them in a white van. The men all remain in custody. Employees of Phones for You could be offered a lifeline after the retailer collapsed into administration. Dixon's Carphone is preparing to highlight at least 1,500 vacancies at its stores, for which affected Phones for You staff will be able to apply. James Barford is the head of telecoms research at Enders Analysis. He says it's a safe solution.
Carphone Warehouse is in a more secure position. It has less debt, and also following its merger with Dixon's, it's not purely reliant on mobile phones. So it's in a much better position to brazen it out if one or more of the operators left.
LBC weather, mostly dry this evening and overnight for London and the southeast, lows of 12 degrees, staying cloudy for northeast England and parts of Scotland with some heavy rain at times, but becoming dry elsewhere across the UK. Tomorrow, a mixture of sunny spells and some sharp showers. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Simon Conway.
I'm Chris Golds in the LBC Travel Centre. It's still slow if you're heading out of London on the A13 towards the Beckton roundabout after the closure earlier. There are delays from Whitechapel and Wapping, and still queues on the North Circular southbound from the M11. The A12's heavy eastbound between the Blackwall Tunnel and the Gants Hill roundabout, with people trying to avoid the A13, and there's local delays through Poplar, Limehouse, Ilford and Barking. The northbound Blackwall Tunnel approach is slow from the Sun of the Sands roundabout due to a breakdown in the tunnel earlier this afternoon, and the A127 heading eastbound through Romford is partially blocked by a van which is overturned just before the M25. Talgarth Road, which is the A4, is down to 2 lanes westbound at Gideon Road in Hammersmith. That's because a lorry's broken down and means it's also slow from Earls Court Road. And Wandsworth Bridge Road in Fulham is closed southbound at Townmead Road. It's just before the bridge after an accident and it's queuing onto the New Kings Road. And in Warwickshire, the M6 is still closed because of an overturned lorry between Junction 2 for the M69 and Junction 4 for the M42. Keeping you moving in next travel updates in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With GoToMeeting. Don't be late. Hold your meeting online from anywhere.
This is LBC, leading Britain's conversation. Deputy Labour leader Harriet Harman takes your calls with Ian Dale at Drive. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Harriet Harman on LBC.
Good evening, it's Monday, it's 7:05 and it's time for another edition of Call Harriet with me, Harriet Harman, here on LBC. I'm here to take your calls and questions on aspects of the news or indeed anything you want to talk about until 8 o'clock. You might want to ask me about or say what you think about the Scottish referendum or on what we should do to combat ISIL. So to get in touch with me, call 0345 6060 973 or text on 85850, or you can tweet us at LBC. So that's me, Harriet Harman, with Ian Dale, of course, leading Britain's conversation.
Well done, you're an old pro at this, if you don't mind me saying so.
I've just seen the first question. I'm on my way out, actually.
Now, the last time I saw you, you were on a train, either coming back from Scotland or going up there with about 100 other Labour MPs. How did that trip go?
Well, it was very good, and I think it was very interesting discussing with all the different MPs on the train why they felt it was important to them and their constituents and to them as individuals that Scotland stays with the UK. I was talking to my friend Anne Coffey from Stockport, and she's got a very elderly mother in her 90s who lives in Inverness, and she doesn't want to be the other side of a border from her mother. And I was speaking to Tom Blenkinsop, who's from Teesside, and he was saying with all the petrochemical refineries they have in Teesside, they've got a really close link with Aberdeen, where all the oil comes out of. And for everybody, all the MPs on that train, all representing different parts of the country, they all had a reason to go up there and say, we want you to stay.
But of course, a lot of politicians, including the Prime Minister, Ed Miliband, Nick Clegg, are being accused of patronising Scotland by going up there sort of right at the last minute. Shouldn't all three party leaders have done a bit more in the run-up to this referendum?
Well, I think it's, the oldest trick in the book to try and make people who are arguing on one side unwelcome and to try and delegitimise and interfere with their right to go up and say their views. We're not telling people how to vote, those of us who don't have a vote, but we've got our right to say to them, we want you to stay, and why we want them to stay. And of course, it's for them to decide. Of course it is. I don't want to sound like the Queen here, but it is for them to decide. But we've got our right to say why we think it's important, and we want them to stay. And actually, nobody that I've met on the doorstep, and I've been up there a great deal, nobody said, we don't want to hear from you. Why are you here? Nobody's said that at all.
OK. Well, we might get a couple of calls on that. You never know, a little bit later. Shall we start with the first call? Let's go to Hannah in Uxbridge. Hello, Hannah.
Hi, Harriet. Hi, Ian.
Hi.
Hey, thanks for taking a call. I just really want to know what proposes to put in their manifesto that supports people like me, young sort of single working mothers. I became slightly disillusioned with Labour and so decided to vote otherwise in the last election, but that really has not been the wisest move on a personal note. So, what do you guys propose to put forward?
Well, I think that you describe yourself as a single working mum. How many how many kids have you got?
I have 2.
And how old are they?
13 and 3. And it's really just the childcare aspect of things. I appreciate other people's opinion that I choose to have children, but yes, I've chosen to have my children, but also I choose to contribute to society and work and instill a bit of a working ethic in my children and to pay my own way. So I really want to know what you guys are going to.
So what can Labour do for people like Hannah?
Well, first off, I think what we can do and what we do is totally agree with her. She's contributing to her household budget. She's giving her children a better standard of living. She's choosing to go out to work. And every time she goes out to work and then comes back and says, I've had a rubbish day at work, I'm not going back again, and her kids see that she does go back out to work, she is giving them the work ethic. So I say more power to your elbow, Hannah, but we need to back up, especially mothers who are going out to work. And that's why we doubled maternity pay and leave when we were in government. And that's why we did have much more childcare. But it's still a problem. It's a problem for school holidays. It's a problem after school hours. And
the problem is it's too expensive. And there's a limited amount that as a government you could do about that.
Well, I don't think that's true, actually. We did have tax credits for helping people pay for childcare that have been cut back. But I think that actually, I don't think it's about you choosing to have your children, Hannah. I think that basically your children are going to be getting themselves educated, they're going to go out to work, and they will be the people who fuel the economy and support the public services for older people of the older generation. So we need children being brought in this country, and we take a very sort of community-based view that it's important what you're doing, bringing up your children, but they are there for everybody. They're part of the community. Okay, so I think more childcare. I'm not going to reveal what's in the manifesto yet, but honestly, Hannah, really big time more childcare, because that is as important as the roads and the railways that mothers go to work on. But you're going to have to be
specific soon on this, aren't you? We're only 8 months away from an election. I think Hannah wants a few specific promises.
Well, we have said that every child will be able to have 25 hours of free nursery care. The trouble with 15 hours, which was better than 0, is that it's quite difficult if you need to travel to work. It very much restricts the work that you can do. And many kids are absolutely ready for 25 hours.
So that's one.
So Nick Clegg hasn't gone far enough. That's what you're saying. Hannah, what would you like to see Labour promise?
Slightly more than that, to be honest. There are certain countries in Europe that offer free childcare exclusively from the time you want to return to work. It's better. It's better than what it is. But maybe it's not good enough.
Quality, affordable childcare. That is our actual goal, and we think that's good for society, is good for children, and it at least means that
Nick
mums
Clegg,
are not tearing their hair out.
He sits in that seat every Thursday, as you know. He could have said those words too.
Well, no, he couldn't, because he voted to cut childcare tax credit, which helped people with the cost of childcare.
So are you going to bring them back? I mean, that's something surely you can say. If you're criticising the coalition for taking them away, are you going to bring them back?
Well, we voted against them being taken away, but as you all know, the finances are going to be very restricted if as I hope we get back in. Well, when we were in government, judge us by what we did. When we were in government, we gave rights to part-timers that they didn't have before. We extended maternity pay and leave. We actually put childcare on the political agenda and extended it. And we will do things differently when we get in, because there's a passage of time. But we know that the Tories will never support childcare. They think they're your children, you had them, you look after them.
You look at their record, and the Liberal Democrats will say, well, it's all down to us. But look at what they've actually done. they have actually promised more, delivered actually more childcare, and the free school meals as well.
Well, I was looking at the figures in my constituency in Southwark, and actually there are fewer registered childcare places than there were when we were in government. So, that is the reality. I looked at the registered childcare figures. And as for free school meals, which I strongly support, Southwark Council planned to bring them in and put them in their manifesto, and Simon Hughes, Lib Dem MP, and the rest of the Lib Dems all said it was a terrible waste of money, and they were all against it. And, at the end of the day, the only thing to say about the Lib Dems is they've supported all the things the Tories have done. It's no good them trying to differentiate themselves now and say they're somehow completely different and disagree with the government. They are sitting there on the benches with the government. They are voting with the government and making life difficult for people. No redemption as far as... as a Labour person, I believe in redemption generally, but not for them.
Hannah, thank you very much for your call. Let's go to John in Free and Barnet. Hello, John.
Hello, Ian. Hello, Harriet.
Hi.
Harriet, I'm glad you mentioned about the country needing children. I've got 5 of them at home.
Oh, goodness me.
They're all great kids. 2 are at university, 2 boys and 2 girls going to go to university, and the youngest one is too young yet. And I've got elderly parents in the north, and hence my question. Scotland have free university education, free prescription, I believe some sort of free care for the elderly. And if they vote no, and I think they will vote no, they promise even more concessions. When will we get a level playing field and where it's fair, where we get the same north and south, and will Labour do this?
Well, I think that some of the things, if you look at for the free university education, it's not all that it seems, and in Scotland, and also they partly finance that by cutting back on FE colleges, which was very unfair. But I think that we're saying that there should be more rights for people in Scotland to decide on their tax affairs, on things like the work programme, and that builds on the devolution that's already there in Scotland with the Scottish Parliament. But as I said when I was in the House of Commons last week, we do need more rights for people in our great regions of the north, the northwest, the West Midlands, the southwest, for them too to have the rights to have more of a say about what goes on in their region. At a time when there's a lot of disaffection with politics, the more people can be making decisions about what happens in their lives more closely to them, the better. So I think that we are set for a period of really looking again at how our constitution works and the balance between the centre and the regions.
Assuming a no vote, would you say that the question of Scottish MPs voting on English and Welsh and Northern Irish issues has now to be addressed?
Well, I think that there will be a looking at the processes of the House of Commons at the same time as looking at more powers for the regions and for Wales, at the same time as looking at change in powers of Scotland. We are at a time of big change, but it doesn't mean that the country should be torn apart, and we need to do it on the basis of big discussions in all the regions and in Wales. They've had big discussions in Scotland, then we need to implement the changes that we've promised.
There should be more powers for the regions. Why can't you say that there should be more influence of English MPs on English issues?
Well, I think something like 85% of the MPs in the House of Commons are from England anyway. So when I'm in the House of Commons as an English MP, I don't feel that we're a beleaguered minority.
But you can't vote on the Scottish health system.
Yeah.
But Scottish MPs have their own health system, but they can vote on the English NHS as well. That is patently unfair to most English people.
I'm not saying that there won't be a re-examination of the way the House of Commons works. That, might well be something that will have to be looked at against the background of a new, if you like, constitutional settlement. So I think people should, embrace the argument, should look at the questions that are there, not get dug in a trench and say, no, we're not going to countenance this, we're not going to countenance that. But I think the most important thing right now is we all stay together and then we discuss how we move forward in the different parts of the country, and that might well mean change in the House of Commons, yes.
Lots more time for questions to Harriet Harman. You can, of course, watch us also at lbc.co.uk. We're on the website on the front page there. Just click on the link. This is LBC. It's 17 minutes past 7.
This is Adam Moore in the LBC Travel Centre. Good evening. Well, still some long delays heading eastbound away from London on the A13. It was shut out of London for a number of hours earlier after an accident. Still very slow through Beckton, though, queuing there all the way out to past the Beckton roundabout. A12 is a struggle as well. Very slow northbound, queuing all the way from Bow out towards Gants Hill roundabout. Delays there of around 40 to 50 minutes. In Manor Park, Romford Road eastbound's partly blocked after an accident at the junction with Shrewsbury Road. In Fulham, Wandsworth Bridge Road is partly blocked after an accident at Townmead Road. In Warwickshire, the M6 northbound remains closed after a lorry overturned much earlier this afternoon, around 1 o'clock, and that's shut northbound from Junction 2 at Coventry towards Junction 4. For the M42, lots of delays on other routes. The diversion is via the A46, A45 and the A452. Keeping you moving. Your next travel update is in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With GoToMeeting. Avoid traffic snarls. Discover how easy online meetings can be.
Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
With the RAC, car insurance you can trust from the motoring experts.
With so many different appliances in your home, it can be hard to keep track of how much you're spending on your energy. That's why at British Gas, we're upgrading our customers to smart meters. They help you see what you're spending on things like appliances, heating and lighting, giving you more control of your energy use, which could save you money. Find out more at britishgas.co.uk/smart. Currently rolling out. Conditions and exclusions apply. Dual fuel customers only.
At Wickes, we refuse to be beaten on price. So, we match our red pencil prices to the lowest everyday prices of our leading competitors. White gloss ceramic wall tiles are now £4.34 per square metre. That's the red pencil price. It's covered by our price promise and it's got our name on it. Wickes. Price beaten on equivalent product within 10 miles. Excludes sale and promotional prices. T's and C's apply. Visit wickes.co.uk.
We would like to apologise for the delay. This is the result of a leaf blowing onto the track. While we wait for the type of leaf to be identified and the line to reopen, I would like to remind passengers with phones and laptops not to hold video meetings using GoToMeeting by Citrix in the quiet carriage. Thank you.
With GoToMeeting, you can hold face-to-face meetings wherever you are. Simply download the online meeting software and start saving time and money now.
But not in the quiet carriage.
Visit gotomeeting.co.uk for a free 30-day trial.
A year ago, my left knee completely packed up and I had to retire from the police service. The pain was so bad I was taking painkillers to get me through the night. But since starting Apos therapy, I now go to the gym every day and do 45 minutes on a spin bike. And now, no pain and no painkillers.
If, like Steve, you're suffering the agony of knee pain and looking for lasting relief, call Apos Therapy for a free assessment. Apos Therapy is a non-surgical, non-drug and clinically proven treatment for worn, damaged and arthritic knees. With thousands of patients successfully treated, call Apos Therapy for your free assessment on 0800 909 8009 or visit apostherapy.co.uk. Results may vary. Harriet Harman on LBC.
This is Harriet Harman here on LBC. I'm with Ian Dale and he's leading Britain's conversation. So give us a call on 0345 60 60973. We're here until 8 o'clock when Clive Bull takes over and he'll have the Money Hour from 9 o'clock with Sarah Willingham. And we've got a question now from north of the border, Robert in West Lothian.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. As you know, Gordon Brown is doing his rounds up here, and John Reid. I heard them at one of the pensioners' clubs last week, I think it was, preaching how their pensions are in danger, etc. Is this the same Gordon Brown that done in the pension funds for billions, sold the gold off for a pittance, and offered the pensioners 10 pence a rise? Is that the same Gordon Brown?
Well, Robert, just if I can, not that this, is an issue about your question, but are you going to be voting in the referendum? Have you already voted by post?
No, I've not voted, but I will be voting.
And have you made up your mind yet?
Yes.
And so what are you going to be voting?
I'm going to be voting yes.
Oh, right. OK, well, I'm disappointed in that. But
the
anyway.
reason I'm voting yes is I was a staunch... I'm 74 years of age. I was a staunch Labour voter until Tony Blair took over. Since then, I've never voted Labour.
Well, let me just say about the point about you were saying about is this the same Gordon Brown in relation to pensions, is that actually if you look at the situation when we took over in 1997, and you'll remember this well, is that one of the worst aspects of poverty was people who were pensioners. That was the worst aspect. And the money that quite rightly was put into helping the poorest pensioners with winter fuel payments, with free TV licences, with free eye tests, not to mention something that was called the minimum income guarantee for pensioners to make sure they didn't fall below the line. Actually, if you look at those, lines on a graph of actually who really did manage to be brought up to a decent level when Gordon Brown was Chancellor and then as Prime Minister. I know there was the big argument about that very small pension rise at one point, but overall, I think Gordon Brown can be very proud of what his record was on pensions.
We had a world-class pension system in 1997 with that one act of political vandalism, of siphoning out so much money from private pension schemes. He ruined it.
Exactly.
He didn't. He absolutely didn't. And there was big issues about final salary pension schemes and private pensions, long before and since. And
the man should hang his head in shame. He shouldn't be even still in politics.
Well, I think that I just disagree with you. I think that actually the situation was that for many pensioners, they were really amongst the largest group of people who was poor before 1997, when we got into government, including Gordon Brown, was pensioners, and that changed when we came into government. So I think,
that 10p was a good offer for the pensioners.
No, I mean, and he went back on that anyway after that. So... And pensioners' income is, many more things, including the cost of fuel. And one of the things Ed Miliband is putting forward is we need to have a freeze on energy bills to stop the energy companies ripping people off. So I'm sorry that you, have decided to make up your mind to vote yes, but I think that we are all better working together, and I think...
But of course, Robert is symptomatic of the problem that the Better Together campaign have, because effectively Labour have run the Better Together campaign, and yet it is Labour voters, particularly in Glasgow, in the Central Belt, that are defecting to the Yes campaign that could tip the balance. Well, I don't think, it's right for me to be a commentator on what people are going to do, or even You're
predict
on the radio.
what. Yeah, no, but I'm not on the radio as a commentator.
I can try.
I'm not a political analyst who is going to, analyse the polls and predict the result. I'm making a case, which is that, in favour of what Gordon Brown did in relation to pensions. I'm making a case about why we think we're better all working together. And, at the end of the day, Alistair Darling did always say that he thought it would be a very close-run campaign and that it would be very tight at the end. Right. And clearly that's what it's proving to be.
Well, imagine on Friday morning, you wake up, you switch on LBC and Nick Ferrari announces a result that it's a narrow yes vote. Will you be calling on David Cameron to resign in that case as the Prime Minister who lost Scotland?
Well, the Prime Minister is working to try and persuade people to vote no, and he and the Tories in Scotland are part of the Better Together campaign. So now is not the time for me to reflect on what their record is in Scotland. And also, at the end of the day, I know Alex Salmond wants us all to be talking about when there is a yes vote and when he is Prime Minister of Scotland, as if it's already happened. But, at the end of the day, the people in Scotland have got a vote, and I'm going to respect that vote, and I'm not going to start talking about all the different alternatives in terms of, the scenario planning. Well, if there's yes, then we'll do that.
But it must be something that you and your colleagues have thought about, because you can't just get to Friday morning and suddenly make up a statement on the hoof. And of course there are also people who are saying, well, if David Cameron goes, maybe Nick Clegg and Ed Miliband should follow because of Labour's sort of record. I mean, if it is a yes vote, it will also have been Labour that have lost the union too, having led the Better Together campaign.
Well, I think it will be, beyond bitterly disappointing if Yes wins and Scotland splits off from the rest of the United Kingdom. But, at the end of the day, we have got until Thursday to win those votes. And I'm honestly, you can fire me from my position here if you want, Ian, but I'm not going to be discussing the result out of respect for the fact that the voters are actually going to have their vote. And, I really just want to be persuading people when I'm going up tomorrow as well, for the rest of the campaign, that we are much better off altogether.
Let's move away from that and go to Chris in Croydon. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Ian. Hello,
Hi.
Harriet.
Hi.
Hi. Look, I won't revisit the previous questioner's subject, although I have to remind you, we all got heartily sick of Gordon Brown's prudence. Everything was prudence, even in the good years. But can I just ask you, if Labour can still call itself a party for the working classes when largely that role has been taken up by UKIP in England and now Alex Salmond in Scotland?
Well, I don't think that is necessarily the case either way in England or in Scotland. And I think if you look at what Labour has always done and what Labour's does in local councils, and if you look at what Labour's planning to do in the future, yes, we are the party of people who want to go out to work but who need to be able to afford childcare, who want to be able to go out to work and want to be ensuring that young people have apprenticeships. But we're also the party of what has been described as the squeezed middle. People, who are working hard, but who are feeling their income squeezed. And also for people in whatever class they're in, who believe in fairness, who believe in equality, and who believe in public services.
Well, I mean, it's motherhood and apple pie, that, isn't it? Because you're trying to be everything to everybody. The Labour Party grew from the working classes. It was a socialist party. Now, clearly under Tony Blair, that changed. And I mean, to his credit, Tony Blair developed a sort of Big Tent policy and brought the middle classes into the Labour Party. But if Labour betrays its working class roots, it's never going to get power again. And aren't you worried about the fact that UKIP does seem to be siphoning off more and more Labour voters?
Well, I think there's two things. Are you betraying your working class roots if you've got policies which appeal to people who are middle class? No, I don't think that's the case. So, for example, it's not betraying our roots and our traditions to be strongly in support of the National Health Service and good public services. And that's something that benefits middle-income people as well as working-class people. So, there's not to be posed one against the other. But as far as UKIP is concerned, I think that there is a great deal of feeling amongst people that somehow people in politics don't understand their lives. People in Parliament are in a different planet, and therefore nobody can understand them and nobody can solve their problems, and none of the main political parties have got the answers to their problems. And I think, in a way, UKIP is a kind of symptom of people's concerns and lack of trust rather than the cause of it. And it's down to us to be on the doorstep in local communities, having discussions with people so that they actually can have that belief that Labour is indeed, as it is in all around the country, on their side.
Chris, we'll come back to you after the news and travel. I'm Ian Dale at Drive. You're listening to Call Harriet, 0345 6060973. If you have a question for Harriet Harman, you can watch us live on the LBC website at lbc.co.uk. It's 7:31. Simon Conway has the news headlines.
The Prime Minister claims millions of people across the UK would be heartbroken if Scotland votes for independence. In his final speech in Aberdeen ahead of Thursday's referendum, the Prime Minister says a no vote would be a vote for real concrete change. Speaking to LBC, Deputy Labour leader Harriet Harman has defended Ed Miliband's decision to visit Scotland last week, along with David Cameron and Nick Clegg.
I think it's, the oldest trick in the book to try and make people who are arguing on one side unwelcome and to try and delegitimise and interfere with their right to go up and say their views. We're not telling people how to vote, but we've got our right to say to them, we want you to stay.
The Foreign Secretary says the family of a British hostage being held by Islamic State militants understand there is a limit to what the government can do to help him. The jihadists have threatened to kill Alan Hemming following the murder of fellow Briton David Haines. It's reported police in Thailand are searching for a backpacker in connection with the murders of 2 British tourists. The man and woman in their 20s were found dead on a beach on the island of Koh Tao. The business news: Phones for You employees could be offered a lifeline after the retailer retailer collapsed into administration. Dixon's Carphone is preparing to highlight at least 1,500 vacancies at its stores, for which affected Phones for You staff will be able to apply. More than 500 jobs are at risk at Riley's, one of the country's biggest sports bar chains. The firm has fallen into administration just 2 months after its owner, Grable Capital, put the company up for sale. Apple says many customers who've pre-ordered a new iPhone 6, which is out on Friday, won't actually get them until October. 4 million were ordered in the first 24 hours. That's a record amount for the firm. The FTSE 100 closed down 2 points at 68.04.
LBC Business. With Nectar Business, the loyalty programme where collecting points is easy.
LBC weather, mostly dry this evening and overnight for London and the southeast, lows of 12 degrees, staying cloudy for northeast England and parts of Scotland with some heavy rain at times, but becoming dry elsewhere across the UK. Tomorrow a mixture of sunny spells and some sharp showers. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Simon Conway.
This is Adam Moore in the LBC Travel Centre. Still some long queues on the eastbound A13 at Beckton after an accident earlier. All lanes now open, but still queuing around the Beckton roundabout. At Hackney, the A12, the East Coast route, still very slow northbound, queuing away from Hackney Wick towards the Gants Hill roundabout. Manor Park, Romford Road eastbound, partly blocked after an accident at Shrewsbury Road. In Upminster, the A127 eastbound, partly blocked. A van has overturned there at the junction with the M25 at junction 29. Very long delays in Warwickshire tonight on the M6, which is still shut northbound, has been since around 1 o'clock this afternoon after a lorry overturned from junction 2 at Coventry towards junction 4. The M42. The M6 northbound entry slip at junction 3 for Nuneaton is also shut because of the closure on the main carriageway, and the M69 southbound exit slip is closed at junction 2 of the M6 for emergency repairs. Keeping you moving, your next travel update is in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel. With GoToMeeting. Fast, easy online meetings. Go online for a free 30-day trial.
Here's a little teaser for you. A Sunday roast, a fry-up, a curry or chocolate. All delicious, but on average, which of these tasty treats is most likely to make us smile? The answer is chocolate, of course. But whatever you eat, make sure you brush with Colgate Total Toothpaste every day to give you complete protection for a healthy mouth. To find out more and for your chance to win a prize to really smile about, like an indulgent weekend for two, go to lbc.co.uk.
We'd like to give our Volvo customers a little bit extra this week. Throw some ideas at me.
Luxury Scandinavian design?
That's a given.
Intelligent safety systems as standard?
Already done.
How about 1 year's free servicing?
Good, Chris. More.
5 years free servicing with a new Volvo V40 this week only?
5 years free servicing only this week at your local Volvo showroom. Genius.
And a complimentary Swedish massage.
Too far, Chris. Too far. Offer available until September 22nd on selected stock vehicles registered by September 30th. Retail offer only at participating dealers. See volvocars.co.uk for full terms and conditions.
Are you having any fun?
It's the final day of the P&O Cruises Winter Sun Countdown Sale. Your last chance to get up to 35% off with our saver prices on thousands of cruise holidays. Choose from the warm welcome of the Caribbean to the magnificence of Madeira. Fly from Manchester, Birmingham and Gatwick, or sail from Southampton, depending on your destination. So do hurry. Book before midnight today at pocruises.com or visit your travel agent. Time for a more extraordinary winter holiday? P&O Cruises. At all protected. Discount applies to our saver prices, subject to availability. Conditions apply.
Have a little fun.
Hey Dave, it's your round, mate.
Yeah, my throat's drier than the Gobi Desert.
All right. Beers all round, yeah? Okay, which one of you jokers has got my wallet?
Well, I haven't got it. God, he'll do anything to save a few quid. Yeah, that's right. He's always had short arms and long pockets.
Seriously, guys, someone's nicked it from my bag.
If you lose your wallet, passport or tickets while you're on holiday, your mates winding you up will be the least of your worries. Keep your valuable stuff locked up safely when you don't need it. And if you're on the beach or by the pool, only take the cash you need.
For more information, go to gov.uk/knowbeforeyougo or follow us on Facebook or Twitter.
Ian Dale at Drive on LBC. With the RAC, car insurance you can trust from the motoring experts.
This is Call Harriet here on LBC with Ian Dale. We're leading Britain's conversation until 8, so you've still got just over 20 minutes to get your calls in. Get in touch by calling 0345 6060 973. or text me on text me on 84850, or you can tweet us at LBC, that's all in capitals. So that's Harriet Harman with Ian Dale leading Britain's conversation. And we're just going to go back to Chris from Croydon, who asked about Labour and the working classes. Chris, what do you think about that? Who do you think represents the working classes?
Well, as things stand at the moment, I'd love to say that it was Labour. But everything that you've said tonight and previously is almost identical to what the Conservatives or what the Lib Dems said. Clegg could be saying exactly the same thing as you. You just talk around the peripheries. All the big major issues that catch people's imaginations and set the agenda, like rail nationalisation, the utilities, etc., everything that's foreign-owned now that needs to come back and could come back into public ownership, etc. You raise a flag and then you run a million miles away from it, and then nobody's got anything positive to vote for because there's no change, and that's really what I'd like to see. If I thought people like Jack Dromey, your husband, would have a sniff at real power at the next election, I'd vote for people like that, but not this new Labour trot out everything is exactly the same, and there's not a paper, a fag paper to be put between any of the three traditional main parties now.
I think, Chris, thank you for that. I think Chris hits on something there, because I suspect that if you were to conduct a secret ballot of all Labour MPs, you would find a majority of them would actually like to renationalise the railways. And yet whenever I mention that to any Labour representative, you can almost feel them sort of clenching their buttocks and saying, oh, no, I've got to say the right thing here.
Well, I think what all Labour MPs would want is to have better control over the way that the railways are run, so that basically you don't have all the confusion between the track and the rolling stock, so that fares are controlled, so that there's more development of railways. But actually, shouldn't the money be better used for investing in future railways rather than buying back the shares of people who many years ago bought British Rail? I mean, I agree we've got to have a public transport system that serves the public, but actually that can be done without spending loads of money on buying back the shares, but instead by having proper regulation, which is what Ed Miliband says that we should be doing.
You're definitely not in favour of renationalising the railways, because I think
it's just the cost. I mean, the point is that we need to be investing more in the health service. We need to be investing in a whole range more of public services, and therefore, why buy back those shares in the railways when in fact you could be getting the same objective of actually having more accountable railways and better fares and more punctuality by better control over it.
Just one final point on this. I was reading about your candidate selection in the Hayward and Middleton by-election, where Miriam O'Reilly, the BBC presenter, apparently wants to stand. One or two local candidates seem to be a bit annoyed about that. Isn't that exactly what Chris is getting at? Sort of middle-class people taking over as candidates in the Labour Party at the expense of locals, at the expense of working-class candidates? Well, she hasn't been selected yet, but it looks as if she will be.
Well, it's down to the members in that constituency to make that decision. I don't have a vote in that.
But they're saying that they're not given the shortlist that they really want.
Well, with a by-election, because you've got a quick election, you have to have the shortlist decided quickly by the National Executive Committee. But as far as Miriam O'Reilly's concerned, and I very much admire the work she's done and what she stood for, but I don't know, I think she does come from a working class background. I mean, I don't actually know, but I mean, if people have done well and worked hard and, how do you, I think there's also an issue of definition here. How do you categorise somebody like Andy Burnham? Who's the first person. He's our shadow health secretary.
I categorise him as a person who wants to be Labour leader.
Well, he did run for Labour leader, but he didn't get elected.
No,
but
I think he
but
still
the point is that he came from a working class family, and he was the first person in his family to go to university, and he's done well through the education system. Do we hold that against him?
No, absolutely not. And I think
understands.
I frankly think all of this talk of class is sort of so 1970s. I think we've got to get away from it. But
well, except that Chris does put his finger on the fact that a lot of people feel alienated from the politicians.
But that's across the classes. That's not just working class people.
Yeah, but I think people who feel at the bottom of the heap feel more bitterly and resentful about it. Actually, the truth is, if you're a captain of industry, you don't bother so much about it. But I think some people feel that they're just not listened to.
I think we ought to, don't you?
Yes. Shall we take a call from Anna in Feltham?
Anna, hi.
Oh, hi. Thanks for taking my call. It was in relation to ISIS. I listen a lot to LBC in the car, and I'm quite concerned with how it's all being reported. About a year ago, I think all of the British public was against going to war in Syria because we realised how complicated things were over there, and that it's impossible to decide which side to be on, who's on the good side, who's on the bad side. And I'm not sure, in spite of media coverage, that anything has really changed in the past year, apart from the media coverage. And so now we are seeing atrocities, and I'm horrified by what's happened to the Yazidi women. I'm horrified by Boko Haram, and I'm horrified by a growth of Islamic fundamentalism. But the idea of now going to war in Iraq again really terrifies me.
So what's your question?
And, my question is, what is being done to stop ISIS? Because what I keep hearing is people saying nothing's being done, but I do think things are being done behind the scenes, and I think it's a different kind of war, and I'd like to know what things are being done so that people know things are being done. It's just that it can't be fought in a way that would see immediate retribution that would appease them. And so that's my question.
OK, Harriet?
Well, I think, you're absolutely right. They are absolutely horrific, and there needs to be really concerted efforts across the board to be able to stop them in their tracks. And I think
they have to be military steps, though, don't they? I mean, let's not beat around the bush.
Well, I think there's a whole range of things that can be done, and there's been a conference today in France which has been discussing all of the issues. Unfortunately, Iran wasn't there, but Iran has got an important role to play. I think above all, it's an issue for engaging those countries in the region who are most directly affected to be working to make sure that it doesn't spread. And there's been complaints about the Iraqi government that they have not been inclusive enough, and therefore that has meant that people have fallen into going along with ISIS. So I think there's work that needs to be done in the region, like in Turkey, that obviously they are massively affected by people flowing out from Syria, refugees desperately flowing into Turkey, but they also need to be controlling their border so that jihadists don't come from the rest of Europe, go through Turkey into Syria.
I'm quite clear on this. I think we should take part with the Americans in airstrikes. I think we should do everything to, frankly, obliterate these people. You can't get around a table with them. They can't see reason. This is very different from Syria. There was no threat to us in Syria. There is clearly a threat. They've just murdered a British citizen. That means the British government should respond, yes or no?
Well, I think, of course, there should be a response, and nothing should be off the table in principle. But for any proposition that there is, it has to be backed by the region, otherwise it'll make things worse. It must have clear, achievable objectives, otherwise you just do it out of frustration, but it makes things worse. It's got to be legal, and it's got to be internationally worked together.
But we've heard today that countries in the Middle East are backing airstrikes. The French have said they will take part in airstrikes. I find it almost embarrassing that the British government is equivocating on this.
Well, I think if there's any proposition that David Cameron as Prime Minister wants to come to the House of Commons with, obviously we will look very carefully at that.
Parliament
and if it
doesn't
meets
sit until the middle of October.
Oh yes, but he can recall it at
during the party
any time.
conferences. I mean, it has happened before, but do you really think the Prime Minister should have to recall Parliament to launch airstrikes?
I think that basically, yes, he should. If there's going to be the use of force, then Parliament should be consulted. And I think that nobody doesn't want to sort out the problem of ISIS. Nobody doesn't want to. Everybody recognises the threat, but it's got to be action which makes things better rather than actually makes them worse. And that's why working internationally and with the countries in the region, I think that as well as the American airstrikes in Iraq, there's been some British logistical support for that through the, telecommunications. So I think that, we are not disengaged, but we just need to make sure that it's the right action and that it's properly thought through and planned. And we also need to take action here as well, actually, in terms of taking down those extremist websites, in terms of working with local communities to identify those who are vulnerable to be doing jihad, and it's been a pity that that's been really reduced.
Right, Harriet's with me until 10 o'clock taking your calls, 0345 6060 973 if you'd like to put a question to her. This is LBC, it's 7:47.
This is Adam Moore in the LBC Travel Centre. On the Underground, the Central Line has no service eastbound from White City towards Leytonstone, with severe delays on the rest of the line. That's been caused by a train which has broken down at Bethnal Green. On the roads at Beckton, you're still queuing away from town on the A13. Very slow at the moment, not helped by an earlier accident which shut the eastbound A13 for 4 hours earlier. All lanes are open now at Beckton roundabout, but still queuing back into town. Hackney Wick, the A12 looking much better now northbound, just quite heavy out towards the Gants Hill roundabout. Still lots of problems in Warwickshire. The M6 northbound remains closed after a lorry overturned earlier this afternoon. Recovery works taking place between Junction 2 at Coventry and Junction 4 for the M42, but it's causing lots of delays on other routes around the area. The M6 northbound entry slip at Junction 3, that's the Nuneaton and Coventry entry slip, is also shut because of the problems on the main carriageway. Keeping you moving, your next travel update is in half an hour.
LBC Travel with GoTo Meeting. Don't be late. Hold your meeting online from anywhere.
Ian Dale at Drive on LBC with the RAC, serving motorists for 117 years.
James O'Brien, weekday mornings from 10 on LBC.
Mum would say, punch her, and I want you to do it hard. I'm talking broken bones. And I was made to make sure I would draw blood from my sibling's mouth. But she would make sure that I carried out the punch, and if it wasn't hard enough, then I would get a beating.
James O'Brien on LBC with Nectar Business, the loyalty programme small businesses need to know about.
We'd like to give our Volvo customers a little bit extra this week. Throw some ideas at me.
Luxury Scandinavian design?
That's a given.
Intelligent safety systems as standard?
Already done.
How about 1 year's free servicing?
Good, Chris. More.
5 years free servicing with a new Volvo V40 this week only?
5 years free servicing only this week at your local Volvo showroom. Genius.
And a complimentary Swedish massage.
Too far, Chris. Too far.
Offer available until September 22nd on selected stock vehicles registered by September 30th. Retail offer only at participating dealers. See volvocars.co.uk for full terms and conditions.
At Wickes, we refuse to be beaten on price. So, we match our red pencil prices to the lowest everyday prices of our leading competitors. White gloss ceramic wall tiles are now £4.34 per square metre. That's the red pencil price. It's covered by our price promise and it's got our name on it. Wickes. Price beaten on equivalent product within 10 miles. Excludes sale and promotional prices. T's and C's apply. Visit wickes.co.uk.
118434, the handy number for handy numbers.
Calls cost 55 pence plus 99 pence per minute from a BT landline. Other networks vary and mobiles cost considerably more.
You're only one person. So if you want to tell millions of people all the great things about your business instantly, you're going to need a megaphone and be able to travel at the speed of light. Unless we get your customers to do it for you. Reputation.com will gather positive feedback from your happy customers and amplify it. To find out more about how we can help manage, improve and protect your brand's image online, visit Reputation.com. The road can be a perilous place. Trouble never more than a wing mirror away. Vans from nowhere, cars from everywhere, potholes the size of black holes, and supermarket car parks that are more like the Dodgems. So for all the road's twists and turns, insure your car with the RAC, and you'll be safe, not sorry. You could get up to 70% off RAC car insurance with our no claims discount. Visit rac.co.uk. Motorists, we salute you. Terms and conditions apply. Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
Pupils are shunning traditional musical instruments in favour of electric guitars and drum kits. That's according to new research today. Do you think it's important to learn music at school? And should the instrument you play be a classical one?
Leading Britain's conversation, Clive Bull. This evening from 8 on LBC.
So there's Clive Bull coming up from 8, and he wants you to stick around for that. We've got 10 minutes left for you to get your calls in to me, Harriet Harman, and I'm here with Ian Dale on 0345 6060 973. And I think we're now going to Alistair in Grimsby.
Alistair, hi.
Yeah,
what's your
hi.
question?
Yeah, hi, Ian and Harriet.
Hi.
I've, over the last 10 or so years, tried 3 times to obtain funding for bariatric surgery.
Just explain what that is.
Gastric bypass. I'm overweight. I have tried losing weight. I did lose weight for a while, only for the weight to go back on. Okay? Now, I've been told that there's no tier 3 thing in place. Okay? I meet the criteria set out by NICE. Okay? I have done for a number of years, but I'm still unable to get the funding. Will Labour look more favourably at bariatric surgery if they're voted into power next May?
Well, what I will do actually, Alistair, is I will get on to your Member of Parliament, who's probably Austin Mitchell, and ask him to help you. I don't know whether you've been to see him, but I mean...
I'm starting to go through Austin as regards my current case. But, bariatric surgeons recommend gastric bypass surgery for anyone with BMI over 35. The reality on the ground is that you just cannot get it.
Well, I think
you just cannot. Yeah.
I was going to say, if you meet the NICE guidelines and you need it, then obviously you need to be able to get it. And I will talk to Austin and see, how I'm sure he'll be trying to help you to get it. But I think on the general situation in relation to bariatric surgery is that, it is really important for people, and I don't know what symptoms you get from your situation, Alistair, but I think, people find they get diabetes, they get heart disease, they have mobility problems, it can cause depression, and it can be absolutely miserable to be chronically overweight and a real danger to health. So when people have tried everything else, then bariatric surgery, can be something that literally saves lives. But we also need to think more about preventing overweight, including especially with young children, to make sure that they have healthy eating habits, that they have more exercise.
But you haven't mentioned personal responsibility there. Alistair mentioned that he lost weight but then put it back on again. Isn't it actually his responsibility as well?
I don't
Not
think
being unkind, but
no, I don't think you can say that. And I think that if somebody has got a situation which is making them really ill and there's a medical intervention that can help them, then I think that should be there for them. I mean, I disapprove of breast augmentation surgery for cosmetic reasons, or facelifts because people feel they've got to try and look younger than they are. And I don't agree with the interventions, surgical interventions, unless they're necessary. But I think for many people, bariatric surgery is necessary. Okay. And I think we can do much more to prevent obesity at the outset, rather than just pointing the finger at people afterwards and saying it's your fault.
Just returning to... thank you for your call, Alistair, by the way. Just returning to the subject of Scotland, Dee has emailed to say, what does it say about Alex Salmond and Nigel Farage that they're both being wooed by Rupert Murdoch?
Well, I think that... I think that people should not take any notice of Rupert Murdoch when deciding the very important issue of their vote in Scotland. Who knows what Rupert Murdoch's going to be doing? Isn't he domiciled in America now? Didn't he used to be from Australia?
Well, he still owns the Scottish Sun. I mean, the Scottish Sun could... I mean, I don't know what they're going to do, but I imagine they're going to go one way or the other. And I would bet at the moment they're probably going to endorse the Yes campaign.
Well, I would bet that a lot of people in Scotland will be making up their mind, listening hard to the arguments, and they're not going to be going, oh, Rupert Murdoch in his newspaper has told me to vote yes or no, therefore I'm going to decide to go with that.
And if Rupert Murdoch invited you out to dinner?
Well, I don't think there's any danger
But if
of
he
that.
did, go on. We're nearly the end of the programme. If he did, you'd go, wouldn't you?
Not.
You would.
No, I
Just
would not.
You'd have to out of curiosity,
No,
surely.
I would be wondering what he wants. I'd say, text me, Rupert, and tell me what you want, and my team in my office will consider it.
He could tweet
I'd be
you. He
very
could direct, if you
courteous.
follow him, he could direct message you on Twitter because he's an inveterate tweeter at the moment.
Well, don't worry. I've been in politics for
Do you
over
follow
30
him?
years, and Rupert Murdoch has never found the need to invite me to dinner, and neither have I felt the need to actually have anything to do with him.
Right,
But,
quick question from Martin on the A13. Hello,
but
Martin.
actually, he's apparently changing his mind on page 3 about 40
Apparently he
years
is.
too late. But there we
Anyway,
are. We'll
right,
see.
Martin, what would you like to ask Harriet?
Hi, Ian, and thank you for taking my call, Harriet. I'd just like you, just before the election, 8 months away, I'd just like you to give me some indication how you would sell Labour to me, given the disaster between 1997 and 2010. And very quickly, 5 little bullets here: Iraq, the benefits culture, unchecked immigration, leaving the country bankrupt, and for me as a high rate taxpayer, I now pay with indirect taxes and stealth taxes, it's close to 62% in the pound.
Right.
How could you...
Okay, Martin,
Yeah,
we've
sorry.
only got a minute left. 45 seconds. Hard sell to Martin. I think it is going to be a hard sell, Harriet.
OK, I'm going to give you a few bullet points. The minimum wage, to stop people being paid like they used to be, like £1.60 an hour. The National Health Service, where people used to be on waiting lists for over 2 years and be forced to go private because they couldn't bear the pain of waiting. Support for tackling poverty all around the world through our international development campaigns and policies. And, I know that you think, well, why, it says here on your little thing, Martin, why should anyone vote for Labour in the next general election? Well, if you want tax cuts for millionaires, then you won't be voting Labour. If you want a bedroom tax for people who, for no fault of their own, have got a bigger council flat than they actually need, well, then you won't be voting Labour. But if you want fairness, and even if you're a top rate of taxpayer, you still need the health service, you still need transport and educated people. So, think again,
I'm
Martin.
trying to tell Harriet to wind up, but she's in full flow. So anyway, I have succeeded. Harriet, thank you so much. We'll see you again at the Labour conference next week. It's not very long away now. I will be back tomorrow at 4. I did announce before the last break that Harriet and I were here till 10, but that would of course mean that you wouldn't be listening to Clive Bull, but you're going to, whether you like it or not.
Thank you very much. What an introduction. And coming up after the news, pupils are shunning traditional musical instruments in favour of electric guitars and drum kits, according to new research today. Do you think it's important to learn music at school? And